This video is sponsored by Squarespace. The Aston Martin AMR 24 is here, so let's take a look at it. I'm going to give my opinion and I'm going to redesign it, my own version, to see if I can make it any better. My name's Tommo, let's talk about it. What's the old adage? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Very little has changed in 2024 on the Aston Martin livery, and I'm happy with that. Ever since the Aston Martin branding took over from Racing Point, these cars have slapped. I mean, in the initial years with the kind of pink line on the side, it wasn't quite what it is now, but they've got the fluoro green as a highlight colour on their base, beautiful British racing green. What I would say actually is that it was a slightly more kind of bluey green last season compared to more of a green this year. And I don't know why it wasn't this green in the first place. Maybe it's just the renders, but I feel like it is slightly a different shade. But regardless, Cognizant have been dropped as a title sponsor. However, they are still pretty significant on the car. They're on the front wing, as you can see. They're on the side of the floor as well. However, Aramco take over as title sponsor. Compared to last year's car, most of the sponsors are the same. They've just moved positionally wise. So like Aston Martin has moved onto the top of the side of the car, whereas it was last year where the Cognizant is, for example, and Aramco is big front and center on that side pod alongside Boss. Valvoline are in there as well to add a bit of red and blue, which actually I don't mind too much. It's subtle enough that it's not overpowering what is a really strong base color palette. The Aramco with the green and the blue has moved onto the front side of the rear wing rather than the rear side that it was last year. It's a bit of a shame that they're carrying over their brand colour. To be honest, I would prefer the white Aramco just on that black plain carbon wing, because the wings themselves, actually the front and rear, are pretty much all carbon. However, this doesn't scream like a super carboned out livery. They've got green in all the right places that makes it colourful enough, you know? I've certainly taken liberties with the carbon on the side pods, especially when you look from a top-down view, but all in all, this doesn't scream as a bland car by any stretch of the imagination, even though it's got a full black halo as well. For me, the sponsor placement on this, apart from maybe the Boss next to the Aramco, I think that's maybe a bit too close, but otherwise it all looks very, very well considered, in my opinion. That was my biggest bugbear with the Racing Bulls, actually. I think the sponsor placement was a bit slapdash on that. At last, with this reveal, Visa Cash App £20 Behind the Sofa F1 team have released their website, which has been locked for a while now, and it looks pretty smart. And you know what? It's nothing you can't have yourself. If you want to build your very own beautiful online home, why don't you check out today's video sponsor, Squarespace? I've been a long-term user of Squarespace with my portfolio, with TOMMO'S Racing Goods as well. Thousands of beautiful drag and drop templates make it an absolute breeze to build something because you don't need any coding knowledge, none of that. Portfolio, online store, blog, yada, 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 whatever you want to do, Squarespace have got you covered. You can start completely free of charge. It's only when you want to publish your website to the world you have to pay anything, and when that time inevitably comes around, head to squarespace.com/TommoF1 to get 10% off of your first website or domain. Oh, also, I'm Luke, I'm 5, and my dad's Bruce Lee's no longer sponsored by JCB. Well, they are, just not any longer on the side of the rear wing, which was a pretty iconic placement, actually. There's a tiny little JCB on the kind of bits around the driver, the removable bit around the driver. So it's not gone for good, but it isn't anywhere near as significant as it used to be back in the day. The satin finish is super, super nice. A lot of exposed carbon as well, but again, there's a contrast there between the shininess of the paint. It's not super reflective. It's that satin finish that's really nice. It just all comes together to produce a really beautiful racing car, and Aston Martin have very much found their brand design, kind of Red Bull-esque, and they just want to stick with it, which, look, is it that interesting that it's changing all the time apart from just the sponsors? No, but they're building a brand. I can't begrudge them for it because it looks wonderful, and for me, tier list wise, this is the first banger. I'm not going to be able to improve this livery. I'm just going to give an alternative version, a variation that's a similar design language to this, just changed up a wee bit. So what have I come up with? Well, here is my rendition of the 2024 Aston Martin. Okay, broadly speaking, pretty similar. carried a lot of design elements over, but I've just rejigged them a little bit. The main change is the fact that the front and rear wings are not just all carboned out. I've brought green onto those. I think that front angle is super important legibility wise on the TV, and that's the one thing that the real livery does not have. From front on, it's very, very, very carbon. It's there's not enough of that green for it to really pop on screen. This will certainly pop more on the telly, no question. Starting with the side pod, I wanted to address the whole Aramco Boss split, okay? So what I've done is partition off Aramco in green, which they have done on the real car as well, but then cut that before you get to the Boss. So the Boss is on carbon, Aramco is on green. For me, this just helps differentiate the logos a bit more. It does make the Boss logo a bit smaller than it is on the real car, but I would argue it pops and stands out even more because it's not just getting swallowed up by how dominant the Aramco is. Valvoline's full colour, Aston Martin Sentinel 1 is all stayed the same, City I've moved a little bit, Cognizant Juniper, blah blah blah. That's all pretty much the same from the side profile on. What you might have noticed is the number actually. I wanted to try something a bit different. You know, Aston Martin is a heritage brand. To try a slightly different font and use the Aston Martin logo outline as kind of a little, I don't know, the two little lime Astons on the side. Just thought it's a cool little way to use it maybe. That's a unique, distinctive shape that Aston Martin could potentially lean into a bit more. I've got the lime coming down the fin, and that line kind of rolls into the rear wing. So most of the rear wing from the side profile is carbon. It's only on top that it's green. And again, I want to make this somewhat realistic. They're not just going to take, oh, let's just put green everywhere. There's going to be limitations here, but I think that's a nice, happy compromise, you know? And a similar thing on the front wing end plate as well. So you've got green on the top, lime line, carbon underneath. Front wing, nose, look, the sponsors are pretty much identical to on the real car. I'm happy with that. It's just bringing the green on, the Aramco on the green, pinstriping out the top of the front wing as well, just to inject a little bit more colour. You can also see I brought the lime line all the way down and around the nose, kind of like Williams have done with the red, but I don't really like the red on the Williams. This, on the other hand, lovely. Come around to the back, and I've got Aston Martin on the back of the rear wing. I think having that brand name on the back of their rear wing, they've got Valvoline in Valvoline, whatever, in real life. For me, it's got to be Aston Martin on the back of the Aston Martin. Come on, that's going to be so much more helpful when watching on the telly. And I'll put Valvoline on the inside of the rear wing, okay? So I've moved you away from that, but then I'll put you there just to appease them. You can see from this top-down view as well, the side pods are very, very carboned out. But again, how often do you see it from this point of view? And it's not like it's not colourful from top down, is it? I mean, there's plenty of colour on the front rear wings and that nice line through the middle. Zoom into the halo, and I've kept that very much the same. In real life, that's actually black paint / vinyl instead of exposed carbon. It might as well just be exposed carbon, no? But I've made the JCBs bigger than they are on the real car, and I've kind of rotated them so that the camera, the onboard camera, will pick them up nicely. I just think they're a bit too small. And finally, the rear wing, again, it's greened out on top. I've dropped the blue to green transition for Aramco. I just don't like that. Having a different type of green on this Aston Martin, it clashes so much for me. It still stands out plenty. And yeah, this rear kind of angle looks pretty clean to me. And one more thing before we're done, I did want to give a little special edition a go. And well, look, I had this idea to basically reverse the greens. So reverse the lime and the dark green, keep everything else the same, just adjust the colours to compensate. And this is what it looks like. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm kind of on the fence. Not sure. I mean, it will certainly stand out. They won't have a problem there, will they? That's Livery Redesign 7 of 10 complete. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of my livery redesigns Ferrari tomorrow. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.